David Rory O'Neill reading Beauty's Price #2 in the West Cork Trilogy. We're still following the same characters that were first introduced to in Surviving Beauty. The guests looked curiously at the attractive young couple that looked like they just stepped from a surfing beach. There was a mixture of smart young things up from Monte Carlo, including a party of 10, with 2 well-known Formula One Grand Prix drivers. There were older men with very young women. Most would assume them to be mistresses. In the centre of the room sat 4 overdressed grand old ladies wearing fur stoles even in the heat. They had pampered but ancient French poodles in residence under the table. The dogs were well tended by waiters, mindful of previous generous tipping. It was the presence of these slightly whiffy creatures that had caused David to be so scathing to the head waiter. David had a particular distaste for pampered Niçoise dogs, and city streets were notoriously smeared and fouled by the droppings of such creatures. David returned to the table first. He was now wearing his best suit, a dark charcoal lightweight Italian tailor-made. It was worn with a pale grey tailored shirt and a pink silk tie. The effect was subtle, stylish and classy. Several people noted the transformation and smiled at him warmly. Regan took rather longer. She stood in a cubicle naked, smearing the body butter on her legs, arms and back. She hoped she'd left no noticeable gap at the back and felt a little foolish, contorting and twisting, trying to be sure she didn't. Once satisfied, she brushed out her hair and put on the dress, pearls and shoes. She stood by the mirror then and applied a little eyeshadow and lip gloss. She considered herself and did a little twist so she could see her back in the mirror. It looked rather daring, she thought. A few inches of bum cleavage showed, and she thought it must be obvious that she wasn't wearing panties. Too late for second thoughts now, girl. Calm down and get out there. She started to leave and got a few steps into the room before realising she left her bag behind. She twirled back, and everyone who'd looked at her got a wonderful show of how the folds and pleats of her dress danced when she moved. A few also got a brief glimpse of her taut, round, bare bum as the short dress floated up, revealing as she spun around. When she emerged once more, nearly everyone in the room was looking in her direction. Regan paused, alarmed. Then she noted the warm, pleased smiles and saw David looking at her with a huge, beaming grin. He was flushed with obvious pride, and he'd stood to wait for her. He looked wonderful, she thought. She lifted her head and walked forward with a waltz tune in her mind. She waltzed across the room to David, and everyone who saw her was lifted and delighted by the sight. Even the beautiful young model types at the Formula One table grinned and were made only a little jealous by the men's eyes following the spectacle of Regan's entrance. When she reached the table, 2 waiters rushed to her side to help her be seated. David remained standing after she'd sat and blushed when a spontaneous round of applause broke out in the room. There were several cries of bravo and a few whistles and cheers. Regan played along and bowed her head and waved. David sat and looked at those around him and watched and smiled. He'd never seen anything like this, even when Chrissy or Kath had caused a stir in the restaurant. My God, she really is something special. Even in this exotic company, she's a star, the sun illuminating the room. What did I do to get to be so lucky? My oh my, am I being foolish asking her to marry me? David Dodge, don't be such a big girl's blouse. She loves you, she does, and today she certainly showed she wants you enough. So, enough of this nonsense. Relax and enjoy.